Hello, everybody. Josh Neighbors here, Locked on Big 12 podcast. Today it is December 2nd, 2021. And on today's show, it is a two-parter. This part right here is your resume review for the Baylor Bears as they go into the Big 12 championship game. Part two will be a resume review of the Oklahoma State Cowboys. So a two-parter here on a Thursday. This one is brought to you by our friends at Omaha Steaks. Guys, Omaha Steaks is the perfect holiday gift for anybody you're trying to shop for. Make sure you guys get your Omaha Steaks order in right now. But right now, if you guys go to Omaha Steaks, use that promo code COLLEGE, COLLEGE, college. You'll get a perfect gift package for $99.99. You'll get 24 entrees. They've got bacon wrap filet mignons, chicken breasts, Omaha steak burgers, gourmet jumbo franks, individual scalloped potatoes, caramel apple tarts, and signature seasoning, plus an extra 8 free Omaha steak burgers included right now into your order. If you go to omahasteaks.com, promo code COLLEGE. All right, now it is time for our resume review of the Baylor Bears.
You are Locked on Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, that's right, everybody. It is time for the Locked on Big 12 podcast resume review of the Baylor Bears. And so this idea was inspired by Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell of Morning Combat. They do these things called resume reviews of fighters before big fights. Well, what if we just applied that idea to football teams this week for Baylor and Oklahoma State ahead of the Big 12 championship game this Saturday in Arlington, Texas. So what we're going to do is I'll put up the schedule for Baylor. We'll go through it part by part and talk about how we arrived at this point. So let's take a look. That was the wrong one. Let's go right there. Boom, Baylor Bears. There they are, 2021 Baylor Bears. So heading into that first run, the big question was, hey, who is going to be Baylor's quarterback this season? The answer was Gary Bohannon. And I thought he had a nice runway to ease himself into things before Big 12 play. They are, really tough Big 12 play. At Texas State and San Marcos, Texas Southern at home at McLean Stadium, then on the road at Kansas. So you had a good mixture of road, games and also not very difficult opponents. Baylor wins 29-20, 66-7, and 45-7 in those first three games. Gary Bohannon established him somebody as a reliable quarterback who is going to take care of the football for you on most occasions, and he did early on. That 3 games was what they were able to set themselves up. Abram Smith was able to establish himself just a little bit for the Baylor Bears as they were able to get into things, but a 3-0 start, and we were asking a lot of questions as they head into game number 4. And as we know, game number 4 for them was the Iowa State game, which they won 31-29 at home at McLean Stadium. And this was the game where Baylor displayed their bend, don't break mentality on defense. And the reason why I mention that is if you go and you look at the drives in this game, and I have mentioned this many times before throughout the season, but Iowa State had several drives that went inside the Baylor 25 that they did not score touchdowns on. First half, 9-play, 52-yard drive, field goal. Also a 8-play, 45-yard drive, field goal. 7 for 65, field goal. 9 for 55, field goal. The Baylor Bears did an excellent job in this game on defense of bending but not breaking. And that was a big part of their identity for much of the season, right? Much of the season, Baylor did an awesome job of, allowing teams to get some yards and go up and down the field on them, but not giving up the big play. And that is something that I think had to be, that's something that we talked about a lot for a team like a Michigan State, right? That bending but not breaking. And then also you add in doing the little things in that category. special teams, right? In this game, we had the Treston Ebner 98-yard kickoff return for a touchdown in the second half. That was Baylor's only touchdown of the second half, and it was a big one. He also had a punt return that set up their field goal in this game as well. So their second half offense was basically non-existent after starting off this game really hot. But their defense and their special teams took care of the rest. And that just shows you a good team effort. And that just shows you a team that was ready to play on that day. That is how they got to 4-0. Special teams, defense, timely offense. In baseball, we call it timely hitting, right? You know, good pitching, and then also timely hitting in playoff situations gets it done. Well, in big games, good situational offense, situational defense, and then special teams as well, taking care of business, setting them up, getting them a touchdown, and also setting up to score some more points as well. Then you go on to their lone loss at this point of the season, their first loss, I should say, against Oklahoma State. This was a game in which Gary Bohannon looked uncomfortable. They could not move the ball really well down the field. They rushed for like 3.7 yards per carry, I think it was. And while this game was close late, Oklahoma State's defense saved 2 drives, really just locked up Baylor's offense. And you go and you look at some of the drives in this game. Here's Baylor's first half. 5 yards punt, 3 yards punt, 3 yards punt, 4 plays punt, 3 plays punt, 2 plays punt. I'm not sure how that actually worked out. I don't think it was the 2 plays and punting. Yeah, it was more than 2 plays. This thing is just ESPN just kind of sucks sometimes. 9 plays punt, 3 plays punt. It was their first 8 drives of the game that did not see the Baylor Bears score a single point. They then put back-to-back touchdown drives together, but then turnover on downs, punt, down. So their offense had 2 nice drives, but the rest of the way, it was a struggle bus for the Baylor Bears on offense. And could we see that again? Maybe. But you go past that. They did an excellent job of rebounding at home. Gary Bohannon has one of his best games of the season, and they blow out West Virginia at McLean Stadium to start a 3-game run of 3 straight wins at McLean Stadium. BYU, they're at home there. They really take care of business in that game. 38-24 was not close. Texas, they come from behind to win that game, and that was part of Texas's backslide. Baylor wins that one. Now we get to the anomaly, right? The weird one that feels like it's out of place. The game that does not belong on this schedule for the Baylor Bears. And honestly, right now you could look back and say it's keeping them out of college football playoff contention because it is. It's that TCU game. The game where Chandler Morris goes absolutely insane and goes off for over 500 total yards in his first start. Call it a lack of tape, call it a lack of prep. This was the first time that it felt like Baylor's team was not prepared. They were they were not prepared for Gary Bohannon, for Chandler Morris. Not really sure how much you can blame them in this situation, a guy that we had not seen much throughout the season. But they get to this point, and this felt like they were setting up for that huge matchup against Oklahoma, and it still ends up being a pretty big game, a great result, but this was their backslide. And that drive to the field at the end of the game, Gary Bohannon throws that bad pick. That was a difficult situation for the Baylor Bears. It felt like that was a game they should have won. They could have won, even though they weren't playing very well late. Still end up falling just short. This takes us now to part 3 of their season. This is the muscle flex. This is where Dave Aranda inserts his name into all these conversations we're having about Big 12 Coach of the Year, National Coach of the Year, guys who deserve a lot of recognition for potentially other jobs up the line, LSU job, USC job. There's a reason why it was these games right here. Oklahoma falls to Baylor 27-14 in a game that Baylor stymies both a potential Heisman contender in Caleb Williams and the presumptive Heisman contender, one of the presumptive Heisman contenders to start the season in Spencer Rattler. Remember this game? This is one where Caleb Williams, everybody has the hype behind him, everybody's talking him up. right now. He goes 9 for 18, 142, 2 interceptions, does get hurt. Rattler goes 4 for 6 for 36 yards. Oklahoma as a team runs for 2.8 yards per carry. Baylor runs for 6.3 yards per carry. Abram Smith goes 20 for 148. Gary Bohannon goes 9 for 107 and a score. 297 total yards rushing the football in this. Gary Bohannon not great in the passing game, but still enough to get the job done. This was a dominant effort. I know it was close late in this game, but this one, like, it was a more comprehensive, dominant effort from the Baylor Bears, especially what they did to that Oklahoma offense. Move forward, the Kansas State game. They capitalize early and then just hold on the rest of the way. They really just kind of held on the rest of this game. That's the game where Blake Shapen must come in relief, but they did a great job on defense of thwarting whatever Kansas State wanted to do. I know they had a quarterback carousel in that game as well. Skylar Thompson goes down in that contest. Gary Bohannon goes down in that contest. Not what we wanted to see for those two guys, but nonetheless, good results. A good result for Baylor. Final game of the year, things got a little bit dicey, right? We talked about this one earlier this week. Baylor, but they hang on late. They get the win over Texas Tech. They make sure they punch that ticket to the Big 12 championship game and cap off what is not a Cinderella season, but an unexpected 10-2 run for the Baylor Bears. They're going to have a chance to win 12 games. They're going to have a chance to win a college football playoff? Probably not. You never know. An Alabama loss this week, tied with a loss. So if Alabama loses and then Cincinnati, Michigan, or Oklahoma State lose, Baylor is now a 2-loss conference champion. Just me personally, I would take Baylor over Notre Dame. I think even though they've got the one extra loss, the fact that they just switched coaches, I don't think helps them. The fact that Baylor is going to be a conference champion and gotten a win over a top 5 team in Oklahoma State, I would say that helps them leapfrog. I really believe this. They just need one of Michigan, it's one of these two, Michigan or Cincy to lose. Now, they obviously need the Bama loss, but we're going to imply that. They need one true upset, though. They're going to need a true upset, either Houston, or they're going to need Houston or Iowa to get a win to put them in the college football playoff. But besides that, a 10-2 season for the Baylor Bears and getting themselves in a conference championship game, a Big 12 championship game, is such an accomplishment for the Baylor Bears. All right, this is part 1 of the video. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at LOBig12. You can follow me at JoshNeighbors_. Part 2 coming up here is going to be our resume review for the Oklahoma State Cowboys. That's coming up next.